Hi, this is Cyrus Gonda, and this is my masterclass on the 4V model of leadership. It's a phenomenal model. 4V. V is normally an alphabet from which we don't get too many words. But here, there's vision, there's values, there's valor, there's victory, and most important of all, there's a thread connecting all four of them. Thousands of managers and leaders and organizations have benefited from this, and I hope you will, and I'm sure you will as well. My journey has been a zigzag one over the years, not very focused, not very structured, not very stable. I really didn't know where I wanted to go, and I've landed up here today, serendipity. So initially, what happened was I've dabbled in hospitality, I've been in fin service, I've been in manufacturing, and I've been in logistics, picking up stuff along the way, interesting stuff, quirky stuff. I'm always interested in stuff, anything. So even if I, for example, eat a snack on the road which is wrapped in a newspaper, before throwing away the newspaper, I'll see the back of it, and it might be a comic strip, it might be something, I just read it. I love reading. Even today, I love reading comic books, fantastic stuff that you can get from them, children's books also. People laugh when they see me reading an encyclopedia or something, but I love those books. Because of that, I used to also love writing. And it's little chits of paper like these that I always carry. This is the stuff that I've written since morning, things I've observed, things I've thought of. I'm still a pen and paper guy. And at the end of the day, when I reach home, they'll come out and they'll be slotted into compartments, hopefully. Initially, I was not that structured. So all these chits went into a big gunny bag. And when the gunny bag got full, I didn't know what to do with it. Like that, I had 3 gunny bags. And then I decided, why not convert it into a book? So it's like, I don't know if you heard of Margaret Mitchell. She's the one who wrote Gone with the Wind. She also loved reading, and one day her husband told her, you read so much, so why don't you write a book? And that triggered off a thought in her mind. She started writing. She wrote Gone with the Wind. That's the only book she ever wrote. Turned out to be a classic. It's the only book she ever wrote because a few years later, she was crossing the road to go to a theater. A jeep knocked her down, and unfortunately, she passed away a few days later. So I started like Margaret Mitchell. I hope I don't end up like her. And so I spent a lot of time at bookshops, and that's how actually authoring came about, because finding a publisher for a first-time author was a real task. It was very difficult. I approached people, as usual, a lot of turn-offs. And I spent a lot of my time, I don't know, in Mumbai, if you're aware of the city, there's a street in the commercial heart of the city where there are lots of booksellers on the road. I still go there, spend about 3 days a week with them, morning to afternoon. Each of them browse, they offer me a cup of tea, and I enjoy my day. That's how I spend my mornings, quite a bit of them. And the journey into writing happened because there was another little bookshop near my place where I used to spend a lot of time. And the owner was kind enough to put me in touch with a publisher. At that time, 15 years back, things were easier. You could just meet them directly, and he was also starting off, so it was a good thing for me. He saw the stuff I'd written, it was on customer experience. He liked it. We made it into a book, and then other books followed on sales, on communication, stuff in which I was interested. It was always an anecdotal form, observation form, story form. That's what I enjoy reading, and that's what I thought people would like. Over a period of time, I developed an interest in another subject, leadership, and the first book that I co-authored on leadership was the leadership learnings from Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, leader from Maharashtra. The book got translated into Marathi, and I'm very happy that people started reading it in other languages as well. So after that, after a few days, I realized that leadership is an area which is of great interest to me. And during the course of writing this book on Shivaji, my thoughts crystallized on leadership. Started collating a lot of information on various leaders from sports, from politics, even from the world of religion. And soon I had a whole library full of these anecdotes. And then another leader, Mr. J.R.D. Tata, one of India's icons, business icons, was a very interesting story because he led the Tata Group for more than half a century, 53 years. And my first ever job was with the Taj Mahal Hotel, Mumbai, and he was the chairman at that time. So I had a special interest in his style of leadership. And I mentioned casually to my publisher one day that I'm collating a lot of information on JRD, individual information also, and if he was interested, one fine day we could come out with a book on that. He said, fine, and we put it on the back burner because there were other things happening. One fine day, I get a call from him. He's excited. Normally, he's not excited. He's cool. But this day, he was very excited. He said, you remember you're writing that book on JRD, you have the material? And I said, yeah, what about it? He said, there's a pharma company and they want to give 2,000 copies of a book on GRD to their clients, doctors, etc., people in hospitals. And can you finish it in 14 days? I said, how long does the book have to be? Because 14 days, although I'm a fast writer and fast reader, 14 days is a tough task to complete a book. He said it needn't be much. 100 pages, 120 pages should be fine. Even if you have about 10 anecdotes, just stretch them, make it a book. And I worked on it. I was excited as well. I kept every other thing on the side. And within 10 days, I had stuff ready, which could be formatted into a book. And I called him. And this time he was not so excited. He was a bit hesitant. And he picked up the phone. So I said, what's wrong? You're not sounding good. He said, I don't know how to tell you this, but the HR head who had commissioned the project from that pharma company has moved out and somebody else has come in his place. And this new guy is not very fond of reading. So he's not really wanting that project to go ahead. They're gifting something else. So the GRD book doesn't go to the pharma company. Those 2,000 copies don't happen. And I said, fine, it's okay. He said, I have 3 alternatives. 1, we can still make the book as it is, put it out onto the shelf, a 100-page book on GRD. It's a good topic. He's a great leader. People will buy it. Secondly, I pay you a lump sum for the effort that you've taken. And that's it. The third is, you elaborate on it, make it a larger book, and we'll see what can come out of it maybe 6 months later. I love the third option because I just read a few days back that J.R.R. Tolkien, who of course wrote the classic The Lord of the Rings, he also, when he was halfway through his project, was a little disappointed that it was taking so much time. He wanted to shorten it down and push it out, but then something held him back. And because of that, he took his time, almost a lifetime, and today it's a classic. So I said, let's learn from the greats. So I said, let me take my time. And coincidentally, on that day itself, I got chicken pox. And it's not a very nice thing to have, but today I realized it was a godsend because it kept me at home for 14 days and I really couldn't go out. So what to do? I had this project on hand and I started researching more and more, making calls to people who had met GRD Tata and racking my brains to see what else I could add. And within those 14 days while I was at home, along with the original material I already had, I now had about 70 anecdotes of Mr. GRD, which could easily fit into 70 different learnings. I call them learnings. And then I said, let's now collate it. I started giving talks on Mr. GRD Tata to institutes, to organizations, to companies. And everywhere when I talked on this great man, people really appreciated it. And there were so many people who came forward after the talk to share their own experiences that they had with the man. Experiences which have never ever come on print before. So there's so many things in this book on GRD which are first time. Simple example, there was this gentleman called Mr. Mahesh Shah, and he's now a stockbroker, but the incident he talked of was in the late 80s when he was a stockbroker at that time. Now he's a manufacturing guy. So he said, I was waiting outside Churchgate station on a rainy day. I was waiting for a cab to take me to the stock market. It was pouring with rain. I was standing in the middle of the road, but no cab was stopping because they felt I would wet their seats. And suddenly a Mercedes stopped and the door opened. And he said, I just didn't bother. I knew I wasn't being kidnapped, so it was fine. I just leaped in. And then I looked at who it was next to me and I recognized it was Mr. GRD Tata. And I was a bit stunned. And he made me comfortable. He said, relax, I'm going to my office. Where are you going? I said, I'm going to the stock market. That's what Mahesh Shah said. He said, fine. Do you mind if I get off at my office first and then my car will take you to your place? He said, of course. They stopped at Bombay House, which is the Tata headquarters. And GRD ensured that an umbrella was sent down for Mahesh Shah and the car dropped him. Mahesh Shah was so glad, he wrote a letter to GRD that same evening saying this was so noble of you. And GRD wrote back saying, I'm glad I could help. And then Mahesh Shah sent his own letter along with GRD's reply to the midday newspaper and it was printed the next day. So this is an example of the nobility, the silent nobility, the values that he espoused. This is one of the V's in the 4V model, and there's so many examples of that nature. One more, just one more, because this is something again which is really so great. I met a guy the other day who said, I met Mr. GRD Tata coincidentally. I'd finished my MBA, this boy, and I was having dinner at the Jewel of India. It's a restaurant at Worli in Mumbai. And I took my parents over there with my first salary to celebrate. And on the next table, Mr. GRD Tata was having his dinner, silently, quietly, alone. I told my parents, that's him, he's my kin, I want to shake his hand. They said, no, you'll disturb him, he might get angry. He said, I don't care, as long as I get to shake his hand, even if he's angry, I'll apologize. And then I went there, introduced myself, and I shook hands. And he said, good to see you, what are you doing here? And this boy said, I've just got my first salary, I've got my parents for dinner. And he said, very nice, I like to see young people taking care of their parents. And then I came back. After that, we called for our bill, the meal was over. They said, there's no bill. He said, what do you mean there's no bill? He said, Mr. J.R.D. Tata has already paid it. And these are examples which have never come in print before. And people were so eager to share them that I said, this has to come out as the form of a book. And now I crystallized all the anecdotes I had into 53 separate learnings. That's because J.R.D. Tata had been the chairman of the Tata Group for a phenomenal 53 years, during the course of which he expanded the group from about 14 companies to over 100 companies. Air India, Titan, Tata Chemicals, all these are his babies. He grew them. And what happened next is, after these 53 anecdotes, I read them over and over, and I realized that they could be slotted into 4 separate categories or compartments. Now, this is where this 4V model comes in. The first of the elements were visionary, various elements of vision that he displayed. The second were the values that he espoused, different kinds of values at different moments of time. The third was the valor that he exhibited, moral, spiritual, and even physical. And then at the end, all these ultimately translated into his victories of different formats, not merely quantitative or monetary. Now, these were 4 standalone elements, and I, over a period of time, thought of calling them by 4 Vs. And then there is an interconnection between these 4 Vs. So, the vision that you have developed, unless and until you have the right set of values, you will not be able to shape that vision into victory. The values that you espouse will shape your vision. After that, it's the valor that you have within you and which you're willing to demonstrate and exhibit, which may require sacrifice and cost in the short term, which will ensure that you stand up for your vision and your values at the appropriate moments and translate them into victory, which is the ultimate objective. So this is how the 4V model, a brief story of how it is, came about. Now, at the end of the day, what happens is, you find that there are various leaders who exhibit too much of a particular V. Let's say a man is all a dreamer and he's got fantastic vision, but it never converts into anything else. That leads to paralysis by analysis. You have somebody who's extremely brave. You had a gentleman called Evil Knievel, and he had 75 motorbike jumps and he was a world record holder. He was a leader in his own field, but no one was nuts enough to follow him. So that valor could not be called leadership. You have people who are so obsessed with victory, numerical victory, quantitative victory, that they forget their values. And though they obtain short-term victory, the victory is a hollow one. So you need to ensure that there's a balance of these 4. It's like a balanced scorecard of leadership, I could call it the 4 Vs. And then I made them into 53 separate chapters. In each chapter, I added survey results, quotations which I love. If I couldn't find an appropriate quotation, I wrote down one myself. I enjoy doing that also. And then there were anecdotes of other leaders who were added to these 53 to make the chapter complete and holistic. Then that's when the book came out. General I.S. Singha, who's been the head of the United Nations forces in Israel and Golan Heights, has given the foreword. He's appreciated the model. Many other people have. And then this model is now a model which developed into other books. Like, for example, the next one I thought of was making one on Mahendra Singh Dhoni, a sports leader from India. And after that, we've had another book which is on the leadership of a young entrepreneur who's made a big name for himself, Mr. Trishneet Arora. So this is how this 4V model has come about. This is the basis of the 4V model. And in the rest of the episodes that follow, you'll see how each of these 4 Vs can actually be demonstrated in different ways by different leaders in different organizations, in different situations to gain value for their organizations. I hope you enjoyed this first episode, and I hope you'll continue with the other episodes where you'll get many more examples of many more leaders who exhibited their own 4 Vs. Learn from them, master what they did, benchmark against them, and you're on your way to a 4V holistic journey of leadership. Thank you very much for watching.